Thanks for joining me again this week. One of the hardest parts of this job comes when we lose an employee. As we've seen with the death of Master Firefighter Christopher Higgins, his death has been felt here and throughout the region. Chris died while responding to a house fire Saturday night. His fellow firefighters led a procession from Baltimore through East County and passed several fire stations on Tuesday. He was a member of the MCFRS family for more than 20 years in Burtonsville. Those tributes and others honoring his life show the strength and solidarity of firefighters everywhere. This is a sad and difficult situation for us, and our thoughts are with all of the firefighters in the East County community, and most importantly, with his family. Firefighters have a dangerous job, jobs that are far more dangerous than most. They and their family members know that with every call, someone may not come home. These jobs are incredibly difficult because of the stress endured and the physical demands. I met with the Higgins family, offered my condolences, and told them that our county would be there to support them. I also passed along condolences from our governor and lieutenant governor and thanked our state leaders for keeping Chris in their thoughts. These events are rare, but troubling nonetheless. When we are faced with a death like this, we stand together to honor the fallen, support those who are grieving, and move forward with heavy hearts. Governor Westmore shared his proposed budget this week. His staff briefed me on it before it went public, and I'm impressed with the direction he's taking the state. I applaud the governor's leadership in navigating the dual challenges of a physical crisis and shifting federal policies while prioritizing bold solutions that promote economic growth and progressive tax reform. At the end of the day, whether at the state or here in the county, the need to foster economic growth is critical to changing the fiscal outlook. As the governor noted in his Baltimore Sun op-ed, economic growth is our North Star. Anyone who suggests we can just cut our way to prosperity isn't being honest. Anyone who thinks we can just tax our way to prosperity isn't being honest either. The key to long-term success is consistent and robust economic growth. The governor's recommendations for tax reform are particularly noteworthy. I appreciate his recognition of the importance of progressivity in taxation and his implementing of combined reporting. This is a strategy used successfully in many states nationwide, including conservative jurisdictions. The governor also wants to reduce the corporate income tax rate and will take meaningful steps to modernize Maryland's tax code. I've been talking about tax reform over the last few years of the General Assembly. I will continue to push for more local tax authority. We need to be able to differentiate the tax rate between commercial and residential properties. Many jurisdictions around the area do that, and it's a right that municipalities have under state law in Maryland, but the counties do not. These reforms will help attract new businesses to our state while ensuring existing businesses have the tools to thrive. Our county is much more like the state in our inability to deliver infrastructure that would help us attract and retain companies that want to come here or continue to grow here. As Governor Moore has rightly pointed out, our state's strength lies in its ability to create pathways for good jobs, good wages, and wealth building. His budget shows that they are willing to make greater investments in key industries like quantum, cyber, manufacturing, and artificial intelligence. In meetings with the governor's administrative staff, we've expressed frustration with the inability to compete with the kind of incentives offered by states like Texas or cities like Boston. The county doesn't have the resources to compete against what states can provide, and economic development at the state level has not been resourced adequately to help us. His decision on increasing the state's willingness to compete for high-paid jobs and industries willing to make large investments here will help put us on the map. These investments align with Maryland's extraordinary assets, such as world-class universities and federal labs. They also position Montgomery County as a state leader in these emerging technologies through the University of Maryland Institute for Health Computing in North Bethesda. The governor proposes funding for K-12 education, workforce training, and ongoing support for other important programs, including housing and healthcare. These initiatives reflect a commitment to addressing the real challenges our residents face and ensuring Maryland is a place where everyone can live, work, and thrive. I look forward to partnering with Governor Moore in the General Assembly to build on this strong foundation and deliver economic growth and the opportunity that all Marylanders deserve. This week, I transmitted to the Council my recommended FY26 capital budget and amendments to the FY25 to 30 Capital Improvements Program, or as we call it, the CIP. This is the biennial, or second year of the CIP. As a result, amendments are limited to project changes that either meet the county's CIP amendment criteria or that are necessary to address capital or operating budget constraints. For example, if the costs of a project have increased to the point that they can't be adjusted with the funds in the budget, we need to increase them. This budget represents our ongoing commitment to investing in the critical infrastructure, education, and economic development, even as we navigate a challenging physical landscape. Our community faces significant infrastructure needs, from building and maintaining schools to expanding transit options. These projects are essential not only to our quality of life, but also to our ability to attract businesses and foster economic growth. Yet we're constrained by limited resources, rising costs, and truly outdated funding mechanisms. The choices in this budget reflect the difficult balance we must strike. We've made it a priority to maintain funding for critical projects like bus rapid transit, school renovations, and accessibility improvements to county facilities. These investments address immediate needs while aligning with our broader goals of equity, sustainability, and economic growth. But what this doesn't have is the taxing authority that Northern Virginia jurisdictions have. Their use of special taxing districts and other tools has allowed them to make significant investments in transportation, spurring economic development and reducing congestion. It makes a huge difference when business location consultants can tell a company seeking to locate in this region that Virginia is able to finance and build the infrastructure in their plans and deliver it in a timely way. And when they're asked the same question about Montgomery County, they say they have no idea if Montgomery County could build out their plans because they have no funding in place. I have talked repeatedly about former Virginia Governor Bob McDonnell's op-ed that he wrote in the Washington Examiner in 2013 called Fixing Transportation Funding in Virginia. What is incredible about this op-ed is that everything the governor said would happen did happen. And it happened over the last decade, while Maryland has remained stagnant. Just compare the two states in the recent CNBC ranking for the best states to do business. Virginia was ranked number 1 in the nation overall, number 3 for infrastructure, number 24 for the cost of doing business. Maryland was ranked 31st overall, 37th for infrastructure, and 47th for the cost of doing business. This budget also reflects the impact of council legislation changes on our ability to raise revenues necessary to fund infrastructure. Recent decisions by the Council to reduce impact fees have compounded our long-term funding challenges. The most dramatic change in CIP funding sources occurred in impact tax receipts. Based on updated estimates, the recommended CIP assumes the use of $197 million in transportation impact taxes and school impact taxes, but that number is nearly $70 million in a reduction in CIP funding compared to prior approved estimates. The Department of Finance reduced the forecast of school impact taxes estimated for the FY25 to 30 CIP after a decrease in FY24 collections to levels that we haven't seen since the Great Recession. And that's not because things aren't being built, it's because things that are being built aren't being taxed. 10 years ago in FY14, the county collected almost $61 million in school and transportation impact taxes compared to FY24 when we collected $15.6 million, a reduction of $45 million or 74%. Since then, the County Council has consistently reduced the impact taxes collected from companies to pay for infrastructure. Essentially, that shifts the burden off businesses and puts it on the backs of county residents instead. While the FY24 shortfall is attributed to sluggish development activity, the Council continues to pass legislation eroding this important revenue source without first identifying a feasible replacement. Bill 1624, which is enacted by the Council over my veto, is estimated to reduce impact tax revenues by $13 million over 6 years. I appreciate that the Council improved the version recommended by the Planning Board. That version would have been a total train wreck and would have cut revenues even more severely. But this is the 6th time since 2013 that a council not just this council, but previous councils as well, has cut the impact tax revenues available for providing adequate public facilities. Lower development fees that target infrastructure doesn't make us more attractive to companies. They've consistently picked Northern Virginia over us over the last decade because the higher taxes they pay in Northern Virginia benefit them directly in the form of an improved infrastructure. While we've engaged in a race to the bottom, our competition is focused on building the infrastructure that additional development needs and wants. Bill 2224, which was recently introduced, would further affect impact tax collections. This legislation would postpone revenue collection for residential development between 3 and 6 months, and would postpone it for commercial projects between 1 and 2 years. Based on projections by the county's Department of Finance, the bill could result in a reduction of $14.8 million over 6 years for school impact taxes and $13 million over 6 years for transportation impact taxes, with particularly large impacts in the early years of the CIP. Though the bill does not reduce overall collections, the delay in collections of these revenues would compound the effect of reductions to impact tax estimates. These reductions are not assumed in my recommended CIP, and approving this legislation would require further project delays or reductions to remove $27.8 million from the CIP over a 6-year period. Despite these challenges, there are bright spots. We've seen increases in recordation tax revenues as the housing market begins to recover, and we've successfully leveraged federal and state grants to advance key projects. These additional resources demonstrate the importance of strategic planning and partnerships in navigating fiscal constraints. I want to underscore that these investments are about creating a prosperous Montgomery County for decades to come. Visit the county YouTube page to watch an update from our Office of Management and Budget on the CIP that they provided during my weekly media briefing. The entire proposal is also available now on montgomerycountymd.gov/OMB. January is National Human Trafficking Prevention Month. This encompasses sex slavery, but also trafficking people and forcing them to work. We do not have many cases reported to police in Montgomery County, and our year-to-year reports dropped by more than 50% in 2024. You have to understand that many of the people being trafficked are deathly afraid of reporting it. Often the people who traffic them are violent and threaten their lives. Sometimes these people are undocumented immigrants and are threatened with being turned over to immigration. So the fact that not everything gets reported is not at all surprising to us. But human trafficking is very much modern-day slavery, and it must be eliminated. Traffickers exploit vulnerable people. They do this by force, fraud, and coercion. Close to 200,000 victims have been identified by the National Human Trafficking Hotline since it was launched in 2007. And sadly, we know some victims are discovered despite never being reported missing by their loved ones who are unaware of their torment. Montgomery County's Human Trafficking Prevention Committee collaborates with law enforcement, agencies, and advocates to support survivors and dismantle trafficking networks. Efforts focus on addressing both sex and labor trafficking, which may occur in venues like hotels, homes, and unregulated businesses. For more than a decade, we've been committed to expanding survivor services, prosecuting traffickers, and stopping this crime in Montgomery County. If you suspect trafficking, call the 24-hour crisis line at 240-777-4357 or call the national hotline at 1-888-373-7888. And you can also report online at humantraffickinghotline.org. We're currently experiencing seasonal highs in flu cases, but it's not the only threat to our community. COVID, RSV, and norovirus are also making people sick. This week, state health leaders issued a new face mask recommendation for individuals visiting or working in healthcare facilities. It applies to outpatient and long-term care centers. The county is also making face masks available for patients who are visiting its clinics. Montgomery County saw a rise in the percentage of positive COVID-19 tests and twice as many people hospitalized with complications since the last update. There were 31 patients this week compared to 15 patients 2 weeks ago. State hospitalizations are also up. Vaccines are the best form of protection, and frequent hand washing can stop the spread of germs. Staying home and wearing a mask when you're around others when you have respiratory symptoms is important to help keep these viruses from spreading. Remind your friends and family of all these important steps as we finish the flu season. Every year we honor Martin Luther King Jr.'s legacy nationally and locally with events that emphasize service, education, and celebration. One of my favorite quotes from Dr. King is also a guiding light for many of us who are concerned about the next 4 years under the new administration. Every man must decide whether he will walk in the light of creative altruism or in the darkness of destructive selfishness. A bit ironic on this day. Rather than dedicating the traditional day to Dr. King, Monday, January 20th, which is set aside for the normal holiday, there is going to be the presidential inauguration, so we have moved it to the 19th. Because of that, we're adjusting our events so they are not overshadowed by the Montgomery County Volunteer Center and the service events they're coordinating across the county on Saturday the 18th and Sunday the 19th. Those projects that help our community partners provide the kind of assistance that many in our community rely on. Volunteers are asked to register with the Recreation Center where the service projects will be held through the Montgomery County Volunteer Center. On Sunday, January 19th, we celebrate the life and legacy of the civil rights leader with an event at Strathmore and Bethesda. We will focus on telling powerful stories about Dr. King's influence through music and live performances. This is a way to share important messages about our local and national history regarding race relations. The show starts at 4 p.m., and while this is a free event, tickets are required. No matter how you spend MLK Day, remember that this day has been set aside for a reason. I remember going to the famous March on Washington. I remember how special it was to see so many people moving in the same direction toward equality. Montgomery County and Maryland have changed a lot in the decades since. We went from a government that enacted and supported racist segregationist policies to one that understands the need for equity across our government and throughout our community. That has helped us become one of the best and most diverse counties in the nation. I want to share a new video about Montgomery County's planned bus rapid transit network, Flash. Flash BRT is a premium public transportation service with buses arriving every few minutes, helping you get where you're going faster. It also offers state-of-the-art weather-protected bus shelters and real-time arrival screens and USB charging on board. The Montgomery County Department of Transportation already has one Flash corridor in service along US 29 Colesville Road. It travels between downtown Silver Spring and the Briggs-Cheney area near Paint Branch High School. The route offers service to Burtonsville through weekday rush hours. And just this week, in our updated capital budget proposal, we recommended adding additional Flash buses to extend this line into Howard County, ending in Columbia. This is supposed to be a big improvement for us because we know over the years that a large volume of traffic coming down Route 29 from Columbia has added to traffic misery in lower Montgomery County. That extension will be paid for through a $3.4 million federal grant, as well as $1.5 million contributed by Howard County. Howard County's own capital improvement program will design and build 4 bus rapid transit stations at Columbia Mall, Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Lab, Meriwether Drive, and Maple Lawn. This is a big deal and a win-win for both counties and residents that have to commute between our 2 jurisdictions. I want to thank Howard County Executive Calvin Ball, the Maryland Regional Transportation Agency, and our state congressional delegation for their partnership and collaboration and investment. You'll be hearing a lot more about Flash in the coming years to come because the county is planning 7 additional corridors. Veers Mill Road is the next corridor that'll have Flash bus service launching in 2026. Flash is easy to use. It travels up and down one major roadway and like light rail stops at each stop connecting to other Flash routes that do the same. Plans call for bus-only lanes and signal prioritization intersections, which allows buses to pass traffic in some spots. That will help get riders to where they're going faster. Flash is also a $1 ride, like all other county ride-on buses. Each Flash project includes significant infrastructure improvements, transforming high-density areas into safer, walkable, and bikeable communities. Videos like this will help us spread the word and get more people excited to ride Flash. I encourage you to watch the video now at montgomerycountymd.gov/DOT. So that's a wrap for today. I hope you have a great week, and I'll be back again next week. Take care.